Today we're diving into the art of milking sheep by hand, a craft as old as time, yet still a mystery to many. So gather round as I unveil the secrets, mysteries, and techniques of this ancient practice. Let's start with the basics, my woolly friends. Have you ever wondered where milk comes from? Well, it's not just cows doing the milky magic. Meet the dainty dairy sheep. There are several prominent gold medal Olympian breeds, such as the East Frisian, Owassi, Lactation, and the British milk sheep. But really, you can milk any sheep. You may not get chocolate milk out of these sheep, but they produce a rich, creamy milk. These fluffy darlings aren't just adorable, they thrive on a cozy, comforting rhythm and routine. A consistent milking schedule creates a bond of trust between the shepherd and sheep that makes milking letdown more of a milky boost. Running the ewes as a dry lamb through all the equipment, getting used to the process, overall handling really does a lot in helping the ewe later on relax and release the milk in a process called milk letdown. A stressed and nervous ewe will end up milking poorly, if at all. When the ewes are on the milking stand, I like to bring some really warm water, as it's usually snowy outside, and nobody likes a massage with frozen hands. I dip the cloth in that clean water, wash the udder, gently massaging it at the same time. Compared to how the lambs approach the udder, I like to think it's pretty refreshing. It's all about building that trust with our ewe superstars, and getting them accustomed to being handled and milked. How long do sheep give milk after birth? In this graph, is a study of an East Frisian dairy sheep crosses, the gold standard and most common dairy cross in production. The milk's weighed in either pounds or kilograms, such as here. For every gallon, there's about 8 pounds of milk. Over a 210-day lactation, peak production is generally around 1 to 2 months along after lambing. There's a noticeable decline soon thereafter. If you're milking a non-dairy sheep or a meat breed, the peak tends to be lower and the drop-off even more drastic. Your sheep may not be the next prodigy, but through the right feed and care, it's certainly capable of reaching its full biological potential, even if it's not a baby Einstein Mozart. Another important factor that helps impact production is the number of lambs the ewes produce. The more mouths to feed, the more milky hormones the ewes releases to prepare her milkers to keep up with demand. I've seen some pretty wild renditions of a sheep in milk, so let's knock this out. A healthy sheep has an udder with 2 teats. It's located between their back legs. And if you've seen other commercial dairy species, sheep's udders tend to be a bit more of a mess than the rest. The main thing I look for is healthy teat formation, so no spur teats, fish teats, a nice and high udder that will hold up to bouncing around those meadows and forests for years. There's a whole art to judging udders and dairy character, dairy potential of lambs, ewes, and rams. Think of it as eugenics, but without the racism and with roots in science. If you'd like, I can make an in-depth video on the subject of dairy conformation, as well as the latest in sheep dairy science. Let me know. But in the interim, here's the speedrun version. When hand milking, we're mostly focused on this part here, the teat. There's a tube or canal in the center, and what we want to do is gently close off the top of the tube closest to the base of the udder and guide the milk down through rhythmic squeezing and releasing. That's the best way I think I can put it. Depending on udder texture and teat length and individual variances of the sheep, I generally squeeze the teat between my index finger and thumb at the most extreme, or milk using my ring finger and palm, or my thumb and index finger alone with those micro teats. There's a lot of variation between sheep in both breeds as well as individually, but more on milking techniques later. Just after giving birth, the ewe's first milk is called Colostrum, a golden elixir packed with love and essential nutrients for that newborn lamb. The ewes most often than not produce more than enough colostrum to co-share milk or milk out extra to preserve later. I find that milking out the colostrum really helps relieve the pressure on the udder or the congestion of the udder, which most ewes really love. I like to freeze this colostrum, double bagged with Ziplocs as they tend to leak otherwise. Mark the bag with the date, year. If you're heat treating your colostrum, don't forget to make a note on that. The heat treating is helpful in biosecurity, so you do lose some of the good bugs, but it's also a very effective way to remove the bad sheep buggies. When milking out ewes, I like to give a few days to a week or so to let the colostrum clear out and the milk come in. This whole time I'm co-sharing with the lambs. At first the lambs are with their ewes, nursing 24 hours a day, and the lambs just can't keep up with the ewes' milk production. I check the color and consistency of the milk daily to see where we are in the colostrum milk continuum. Plus, it gives me a good eye on the health of the ewe, gives me a good chance to see if the lamb's nursing enough or favoring one side over another, which may indicate a problem or preference, which is a problem. Later on, as the weather warms up a bit and the land seems to get a hang of life, I separate the lambs from the ewes at night and milk first thing in the morning. This works for my schedule, and I know people who milk at night only or bottle feed the lambs and milk twice a day, so it's really a personal decision. When I separate the lambs, they get their own pen with fluffy bedding, free choice hay, and pellets that normally they may get outcompeted to eat. But here they dine, play with their food if they want, sip water, and fool around. The ewes get a bit of a break, graze freely with their lambs, and they can sleep next to the lamb pen if they like. Giving the lambs the opportunity to nosh on hay and some pelleted feed really helps them get a boost on their rumen development, which in turn supercharges their growth. How often do you milk? If for whatever reasons the lamb can't or won't nurse, it helps the ewe to milk her 2 or more times per day. Though frequency and method may vary farm to farm, the main factors that affect milk production and may influence your milking decisions are species, breed, individuality of your ewe, the stage of lactation, the age of your ewe, any health or illness in the ewe, temperature such as heat stress, your management practices, overcrowding, and cleanliness will affect the production and how often you need to milk, as well as the ewe's body condition, diet, changes in diet, and more. So there are a lot of factors that really impact how much your ewe will produce when co-sharing or milking while the lamb is nursing the ewe. Folks tend to milk less, but the trade-off is less work in cleaning bottles, some fat lambs. Meat breeds tend to milk so little, it's really a personal decision on what's worth it to milk for you and your kin. The main thing is to keep a consistent schedule and a relaxing environment for the ewe. What happens if I don't milk every day or force the sheep to dry off? I've gotten this question a lot, what if I just want to milk every other day, or do I really have to milk? When sheep don't get milked regularly, either due to lamb death or an ewe rejecting a lamb or not keeping a milking routine, this causes the udder to engorge, inflame, and may cause udder injury, sickness, or worse. If you are milking a meat breed sheep or a non-dairy sheep, it may feel like you're fighting nature, and they tend to drop off dramatically in production after peak and dry off readily at the drop of a hat. Also, drying off sheep too early and dramatically can impact how much they can produce the next year too. There's a lot of factors to take in consideration on whether you want the responsibility of milking every day. It's incredibly difficult to get a sheep back up to pre-dry off production if you choose to alternate days. It's basically how you dry off a sheep, or how the sheep tells its body it's time to stop milking. How long can sheep produce milk or get milked for? I like to milk mine until they're about 10 years old and then retire them from the milking strain. Some folks like to milk them longer, and sheep with good conformation tend to hold up to the rigors of age better and can have a long and more productive life than sheep with a body not quite put together well. Commercial dairies tend to milk them until they're about 6 years old and may retire them to a home dairy farm. As sheep age, they do lose production, and it may be harder for them to stay in peak condition while caring for lambs and or being milked. But as with many things, individuals and the sheep and the farmer's needs really make it more of a personal decision and what's worth it for you and what's a waste of time. Milking Parlor unveiled. I built this wood station to accommodate my big girl and my mini sheep. We have a headlock, trough that I can take out and clean, some side rises to hook my gear to, and keep the other sheep from crowding me out. Eventually I want to build a mobile milk stand, but this works well for milking a few sheep. It takes me a few minutes to half an hour to milk out the ewes. I have some hand mobility issues, which impacts how fast and efficient I am at milking that you may not experience. I like to exercise my hands in the off season, as my hands do get really sore otherwise at the start of the milking season. I like to use a small container to catch the milk, especially if it's a first-time freshener or an ewe that's new to being milked. They may kick, and it's hard when you have a full bucket that gets kicked. To train them to the milking stand, I like to use positive reinforcements, a handful of alfalfa pellets, not cubes, to guide them where I want them to go, and pop it in the trough. They're pretty happy to oblige, and the alfalfa pellets are super healthy for them too. As I'm milking them, I'll pop them some more pellets, and in the end, they get a handful as well. I like to give them quite a bit of alfalfa pellets as they're small sized, easily chewed with minimal choking, plus offsets the nutritional depletion of the stored hay. If I notice they're losing too much body condition with all their production, I do give them some tailored grain-based feed, but I really prefer a high calcium diet rich in legumes and grasses to get them ready for lambing and milking. This helps me ensure that they don't get milk fever, ketosis, or bloat. The main thing is to prepare them for spring by feeding them really well through their dry period, so they're nice and plump and ready to get to work. In hand milking, each sheep has their particulars. Fish is the weirdest sheep I've ever milked. She loves to kick you unless I milk her upside down. It's pretty fun, but it's hard on my back. She loves back rubs, so maybe that's why she prefers it that way. Lamie has a very large and loose udder. She has tiny teats, but because her udder is so pliable, it's a joy and ease to milk. I hold on to more of her udder than Fish, and massage the whole udder as I milk. She has a very large orifice size, which makes milking her that much faster. Fish, on the other hand, has a very tight udder, tiny teats, a tight orifice, so it takes a bit more time to milk her out. So as mentioned earlier, let's go through the many ways to milk sheep. We'll call this one fingers of gold technique. Placing our thumb and index finger technique. It may be easier to roll your finger repeatedly or just squeeze and release. It gets so redundant though, so my sympathies if you have to resort to this technique. Lily, though being brown, does not yield chocolate milk. It must be a cow only thing. She has a nice udder, and this is her second freshening. Hopefully you can get a good view of what I'm doing. Because the sheep udders have a tendency to point sideways, rather than have the teats point to the ground, I like to guide the milk by positioning the teat with my pinky and mainly milk with my top 3 fingers in a rhythmic motion. We'll call this technique the loving loop. We don't want to yank on the teats like they show in the movies. That's very hard on the udder and can really damage the tissue. That technique's called strip milking. So gentle is the way. With sheep, I find it easier to milk them from behind rather than milking from the side, such as with a cow. Speaking of cows, I used to have a cow that liked to poop when I milked her. She was a retired dairy cow and very nice, but girl, why? These girls are pretty polite. Lamie, though, does like to pee as soon as she gets on that stand, each and every time. I give her snacks, wait for her to finish peeing, and then wash off her udder once she's indicated she's ready to start. I imagine it's like she's getting ready for me to take a while and wants to pee right before her long trip, and then 10 minutes later we're done. Sheep time is different from people time. So here we are, we have a side-by-side comparison, a well-milked udder and a full udder. There are 2 quarters in the sheep's udder, so this quarter is nice and empty, and the other side, which I haven't milked out yet, is noticeably still full. She's a dairy sheep, so the difference is more dramatic. Another sign that your sheep is milked out is by observing a teat. It won't fill back up with milk as readily, and it may have a wrinkled or deflated look and texture. Some more tips for milking? I like to have a separate container with a lid to pour the milk in, just in case an accident, say a kick, or if a sheep gets into my gear and starts to throw the container around the barn for fun. I like to wash the udder. It helps a lot in keeping the milk clean, and strain it when I get the milk into the house. A high count cloth works well as a strainer. I have a stainless steel milk filter that I love to use. Either works really well though. Following up your milking with an iodine teat tip or a commercial teat tip does wonders in keeping infection at bay. The main thing is prevention. While milking, I like to squirt the first milk onto the floor. There are stainless steel containers for these purposes, but the floor works fine for me. The milk should be white. If it has a yellow tint, that's most likely colostrum. If it has a pink tint, that is an indicator of a deeper problem. It should be thin compared to the colostrum. No chunks, stringy, or gloopy stuff, which may indicate an infection. For kicky milkers, first I check for any health conditions. Sheep communicate in the best way they know how. A congested udder, an internal udder injury from getting butted super hard, or mastitis can cause pain with handling. If there's no medical condition causing the kickiness, next is to check on technique. Does the sheep have a preference? Is it getting spooked? Are you maybe pinching a little bit or handling it a little rougher than what she might be used to? After all that, there's the hobble. It's a type of cloth handcuff. It doesn't prevent them from kicking if they are determined, but it does stop the kicks from gaining momentum and may dissuade them, make good decisions kind of thing. Giving them a snack to nosh on if they're kicking out boredom really helps in keeping them busy. Some girls are kickers. To me, that's a coal from the line, if not from the flock. But for others, they'll just transfer them to their meat flock. I'm pretty harsh when it comes to what's acceptable and what's not. I find it keeps my flock super mellow, friendly, and easy keepers. And I know folks who can't coal, and selling is very hard too. So what matters is to make it work for you, your farm, and your piece. Milky breakdown and bring it all home. So one of the things about sheep milk is how mild it is. It's very hard for there to be off flavors due to diet. goat. One of the best ways to preserve that fresh, crisp flavor, though, is to chill your milk down as rapidly as possible. Chilling the container in the ice bath of circulating water is the fastest way to bring your milk to temp, down to the ideal levels of cold. Next up is the ice bath. Lastly, putting your milk in the fridge. That's going to take a long time to chill. The main thing is strain it first and then chill. If you don't strain your milk properly, you'll see it when you pour your milk out with bits of hair or wool. And that's not choice nummies. I like to collect a cream that rises, so I have several wide-mouthed containers. The cream will rise to the top. I don't use a cream separator since I used to have one, and it was such a pain to clean each and every part post-separating. It was a hand crank model and super fun to use, very efficient, but the cleanup was so much trouble for me. With skimming, I just freeze the cream until I have a quart, then thaw and churn with a stick blender till it comes together as butter. The skimmed milk mainly goes to cheese making. Sheep's milk is nutritionally dense and low with minerals and vitamins, even when skimmed. It can come out very hard, so don't forget to be mindful of the amount of rennet you're using when making sheep's milk cheeses. They readily make a firmer cheese. And if you're used to store-bought cow's milk or even homegrown goat's milk, which is super fun to make cheeses with, sheep cheeses are fun, but they have a bit of a learning curve. Most recipes that you'll find online is tailored for either heat-treated milk, pasteurized milk, store-bought cow milk, even store-bought goat milk. And sheep's milk tends to have a much firmer curd than even cow or goat. So I've had to modify my recipes to accommodate the nuances of using sheep's milk. So you'll probably be like me where you have to just modify your recipes. So there you have it. Milking your sheep by hand at home isn't just an activity, it's a journey that transports you back to simpler times. It links you to generations past and whispers of hay-scented memories. As you stand there, pail in hand, and a sheep that's just as confused as you are, it's a chance to reconnect with nature, our collective heritage, and convert local forage to milk and cheeses straight from your backyard. You're not just milking your sheep, you're harvesting a treasure trove of benefits right from your own flock. Rich in vitamins, minerals, and proteins, a testament to the harmonious relationship you foster with your sheep. This fresh, unprocessed milk is a direct line from pasture to pail to your table. You can't buy that in a store. By embracing home dairy sheep, you're not just taking charge of your health, you're reducing your carbon footprint. You're saying no to unnecessary additives, preservatives, and long transportation route. You're championing a more sustainable lifestyle, one that's connected to the land, the seasons, and the circle of life. Remember, you're not just milking sheep. You're reclaiming a powerful tradition, forging a path that echoes with the footsteps of generations past. You're cultivating resilience, independence, and a sense of fulfillment that's unmatched. You're a modern-day homesteader, a dynamic dynamo, turning the act of milking into a transformative experience that empowers you and nourishes your soul as much as it does your body. Plus, if you ever need a conversation starter, just casually drop into a chat that you hand milk your sheep. Trust me, jaws will drop, and you'll become the neighborhood's official unique weirdo. So grab your pail, channel your inner dairy duchess, and let the milking games commence. Your sheep may not applaud, but deep down, they're definitely saying, thanks for the memories. It's milking time, and you got this, utterly and completely. For more videos on judgmental sheep, check out these videos. And don't forget, thank you, and I appreciate you.